This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Good morning everyone, and welcome to a glorious morning in Rimini in Italy. I'm here for the weekend to help film some behind the scenes content and some YouTube content for the biggest ice cream show in the world. Yeah, that's the truth. I didn't just make that up, that's what I'm doing. But in between doing that, obviously I thought it would be a good idea to catch the sunrise, catch the sunset. I did walk around the sunset last night and try and take a few photos. It is just stunning here. And I think one of the reasons why this is so cool is because this is off season. This is obviously a summer resort. And in August, I reckon this place is booming. But the fact that it's all closed down, everything's shut and a little bit desolate, it's kind of cool to see it. I'll be playing around with the colours and the light and the compositions because this is kind of beautiful in its own little weird way, but there'll be no subjects or people, I don't think. Maybe some people walking their dogs and whatnot, but yeah, cool. Let's take some photos. The type of photography that I'm really leaning into right now is all compositionally focused, but the idea of getting the edges of buildings and frames and poles and lines leveled up with the horizon so they all kind of form a similar shape, or at least the compositions flow, or the elements in the composition flow. It's very graphic design related. It feels like I'm designing something rather than capturing a unique moment. I'm actually just seeing how creative my eye can get. It's good fun, especially when there's no subjects around and the light is beautiful and the colours are amazing. Yeah, I feel like you should lean into whatever your surroundings are giving you at the time, I guess, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. So here's an example of the compositional play I was talking about earlier. You see the top of this swing? I think it's supposed to be a swing. The red bar kind of flows into those shacks, or the roof of the shacks. Whereas if I was here, you can see that hits it and it doesn't have its own space and it kind of is a bit jarring. Whereas if I pull the composition more so like this, everything leans up a little bit better and then everything's got space. This has got space, the roof of this has got space, this shadow and this object here's got space, this thing over here's got space, the blue and the white. I mean, it's still a photo of nothing, but it's fun to try and play around with regardless. That scene right there with the chairs on the floor and the blue and the white, it's not interesting. I'm not even going to try and sell you on the idea that it's interesting. Having a little play around, crouching around, leaning, just like trying to find a good composition in what looks like a boring scene. It's fun. I admit it's still weird that I do these things, that many photographers do these things. I'm sure people can relate. We're pointing at something going, that could be interesting, but I don't know why, but I'm going to try.
I would just like to take a moment to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I have been using Squarespace for years, way before they even became sponsors of this channel, and they're essentially the best website at making websites. If you're a photographer watching this video now and you want to take things a little bit more seriously and create a place that represents your work and host your work as a portfolio online, then Squarespace is great. If you're taking things a little bit further than that and maybe selling products, selling digital things, writing blogs, creating a newsletter, a weekly email, Squarespace has you covered as well. Everything I pretty much just mentioned, I've been using Squarespace for over the last few years, and I cannot recommend them enough. If you want to see more photos from this trip specifically, I created a dedicated page from Rimini, Italy in the photography section on my website. It took me a matter of 5-10 minutes to do so. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to see more images. So why not at least start a free trial and see what you think? After that, when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MikeChudley to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, let's get back to the video.
It looks like this is an abandoned, well not abandoned, just closed water park. It actually looks really cool in here. A lot of it is cardboarded up. Looks kind of abandoned around here, but I can't get inside because of this. But that would have been cool. The light right now is just so good. And the blues and the whites and the yellows. Yeah, I thought I'd just show you it. I don't think I'll take any photos here, but the Lazy Club. I bet this is a totally different atmosphere in summer. Totally different. On the topic of this type of photography, Chris Harrison said something that I think is very interesting back when I interviewed him last year for a video. He said something along the lines of, I like taking photos of things that happened in the street, but it almost looks like it shouldn't have happened in the street. There's a little bit of obscurity to it. And when we're playing around with compositions along the seafront, you can either turn the scene into something incredibly aesthetic. The viewer can understand what the photo is immediately. Or you can do the opposite effect and take a photo of something that looks very obvious, but you can frame it and compose it in a way that kind of makes the viewer go, huh? What is, how is, why is?
On this point, I thought I would just briefly elaborate. The idea that I'm talking about in terms of elements in your composition kind of lining up and placing elements intentionally so the composition looks a little bit neater. I think the point I was also missing here with mentioning Chris Harrison, Chris Harrison's photos have an illusion to them. Not that I achieved that with these photos, because these photos were just very basic and very aesthetic. They were nice on the eyeballs, I like to say. But with Chris Harrison's photos, sometimes you can remove depth. There's an illusion of depth. Because everything lines up perfectly, you can't quite tell where things are supposed to be in reality, because you've manipulated the frame a little bit with the composition by lining things up where they otherwise wouldn't normally be lined up. Hopefully that makes sense, but I thought I'd just mention Chris's photos because I was thinking about his work when I was shooting along the coast, because he shoots a lot along the coast as well. This whole conversation plays into a bigger idea of having fun with our photography, which you can kind of see that's what I'm doing here, but let's go back to Rimini now. I'll show you more footage and more photos, and then let's come back here and I want to share some more ideas about how I intentionally keep photography fun and kind of the things that I keep at the front of my mind when I'm out shooting.
Also, I think it's very appropriate for YouTubers to tell their viewers how cold it is where they are. So yeah, it's -1, if you didn't know. Bloody freezing.
on the topic of keeping photography fun, I didn't realize that when I was in Rimini filming this and waffling to the camera that I was actually trying to articulate two main themes and ideas. And these two ideas kind of are front of mind whenever I go out and take photos. So let's talk about it. Technique number one is gamifying the process. And the example in this video, which I spoke about a lot, is fitting the elements in the frame together like puzzle pieces. We're essentially playing a game of how creative can we get, or how can we make this scene look as good as possible. I see that as a game. And now when we're on the beach, it's compositional play, like we said. Or if I'm in a busy Oxford street, then I might be gamifying the process by looking for matching colors, looking for one-off gestures or rare moments. It's a game of what if, what can I possibly create from this scene? And strategy number two is leaning into your environment and making it easy. Now this one sounds very obvious, but I think it's worth articulating. If I'm walking down Oxford Street, I'm taking photos of people and moments, obviously. If I'm walking down the coastline in Rimini, Italy, then it's aesthetics. The place is beautiful. It's like going outside hunting for those harsh light and shadow contrast images on a cloudy day. It's just not going to work. By leaning into your environment and letting the surroundings take control means that the process of photography is going to be fun, or at least easier, no matter where you are. It's like restricting yourself to one thing and then being in an environment where that one thing doesn't exist. You're just going to make it difficult. So if you're in a small town, but you want to take photos as if it's Oxford Street in London, there's something not right about the approach. And that's kind of what I was doing in Rimini. I don't typically look for these simple, playful, colourful compositions because most of the time I'm in central London. But if I'm out of that situation and I'm somewhere where there's a beautiful landscape, then it looks like I'm taking landscape photos. I guess this is also not to be confused with being creative and, being a bit abstract with things. Like, yes, you can take the direction of your photography in any which way possible, but if we're having fun and the goal here is to enjoy the process no matter where we are, then I think leaning into our environments and removing the friction and just not making it difficult for ourselves is important. Anyway, those are the two things I like to do to keep photography fun. Number one, gamify the process, and number two, lean into your environment and make it easier for yourself. Leave your comments down below if you've got any more thoughts on this idea of enjoying photography and what are the things you do to ensure the process is fun. I think this kind of topic is very open forum and everyone's going to have their own opinion on it, which I think is great. There are no rights and wrong with this kind of thing. Anyway, that's enough for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. Road to 100,000 subscribers. We are 400 subscribers away, 500 subscribers away. So it's happening. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. Peace.